Hey guys, it's Billy, coming at you with a new deck profile with the newest Katana World deck, Electrodeities, the flag is obviously Katana World, and the buddy of the deck is Electrodeity of Light, Amaterasu. Her ability is pay 2 gauge, and at counteract, you can choose and use one of the following two, and you can only use her ability once per turn. You can either put the top card of your deck into your gauge, and for the turn, she gets 8,000 power and double attack, or you gain 2 life and draw a card, and for the rest of the turn, she gets 4,000 defense, so she'll be at 12,000 power. This build is a good kind of, I feel, general starting point for if people don't know how to build the deck. Obviously, they can modify it how they feel, and I'm still trying to just slightly modify numbers here and there to make it flow better. But I figured this would be a good starting point for new players or players who are just not used to Katana World decks in general. So, first card is, I have 3 of the item, Kagura Bell of Worship. It is a 3/1 item and has 4 abilities. At the start of each player's main phase, you may put a size 3 Electrodeity from your hand on top of this card. The card is put on top and is treated as an item until it leaves the field. It means the size 3 Electrodeity. At the end of each player's turn, equip this card from an item soul and return the previously equipped card to hand. This card on the field and items with this card in their soul cannot be destroyed, and it cannot be, if it's in the soul of the item, it can't be dropped by any cards, whether you or your opponents. So I'm starting with the item because obviously it's the focal point of the deck. The main point is, at least during your opponent's turn, you want to transform or possess into your buddy, Materasu, since she's a size 3. So you can have 12,000 defense and gain 2 life and draw a card. And she's a good, she's a halfway decent offensive ability too, with the gain a gauge, 8,000 power and double attack, but she's not the best one. Susanoo will be the best. But just speaking of the buddy, I just run 4 of her in the deck because obviously she's buddy and she's obviously the best defensive option. Next is 3 Unruly Electrodeity, Susanoo. He's a 10,000 3 crit, 4,000 defense, and he costs 2 gauge. And by the way, the Kagura Bell makes it so when you possess into the monsters, you do not have to pay their call cost because it's a call cost, not like an equip cost. So really, when you possess into these monsters, they're actually free. Just to keep that in mind while you're, reading these. But he has 2. He has an act ability that you can choose one of 2 of. They're not counter, so you can only cast it during your turn, during your main phase. But his is act, pay 1 life, and if you do choose and use one of the following 2, you can only use it once per turn. And it's once per turn per card, so if you have 2 Susanoos on the field, like 1 equipped and 1 on the field, you can activate it for both. But you can either, for the turn, he gets triple attack and penetrate, or you destroy all spells and items on your opponent's field, and 99% of the time, you will be doing the triple attack and penetrate. But, the item and spell destruction, I guess, is a nice little side effect if you ever do need to use it and you need to wipe some good, items and spells off the field, like maybe with Leviathan, if they don't have Durandal on the field, which most of the time they do. But anyways, I'm digressing. Anyways, next are the size 2s, and the only size 2 is Guardian Electrobeast Goryo. She's a 5/2/4. You can only call one of her once per turn, but when she enters the field, you look at the top 3 and put one of them into your hand and drop the rest to the drop zone. You don't have to show your opponent what you grab, and obviously that your opponent can see what you send to the drop, but you don't have to show them what you grab. But she's just basically the equivalent of a Banquet for the Unrighteous for Electrodeities. Next are the size 0s, and I'm skipping size 1s because I don't have any size 1s in the deck, but size 0 is Electrobeast Emissary Otora. She's a 2/1/1, and when she enters the field, if you have another Electrodeity on the field, you gain a gauge and draw a card, and that's not once per turn, so I run 4 of her. You can probably run her at 3, since she doesn't work off herself, if she's the only one on the field. But ideally, you just want to equip your item and then call her to gain a gauge and draw a card. And she's good for trying to get more options for Kagura Electrodeity Welcome, but we'll get to that soon enough. Next, the other size 0 is Electrobeast Emissary Shuto. He's a 3/1/3. You put an Electrodeity from your drop zone into its soul, and you pay 1 gauge. So you can't pay the 1 gauge and then put that gauge into its soul. It already has to be in drop before the call cost. And his ability is Electrodeity items get plus 3,000 defense, plus 3,000 in power, and if your life is 6 or less, it gets a crit. And as move and soul guard. If you probably won't be moving. I have honestly not moved at all with this card, but because I'd rather have the 15,000 defense of a Amaterasu than just move Shuto in the center and potentially get penetrated. But I mean it's a good card to wall up and try to make your opponent force to have to deal with your monsters on the side instead of attacking you directly. And if you have 2 Shutos on the field, you could potentially get up to 18,000 defense, which is a pain in the butt to try to deal with. So, and then on to spells, there's really not a lot of monsters in the deck, but moving on to spells, I run 4 Electrodeity Festival. You can choose and use one of the following 2. You can either put an Electrodeity item from your deck into your hand and shuffle your deck, which you're just grabbing the Kagura Bell. Or at counter speed, you can stand an Electrodeity on your field to have them attack again. That can be either item or monster if you call the Electrodeity to the field. So, it's pretty versatile, but it's a definitely much of a consistency card. And that's part of the reason why I only run the item at 3, because I feel like at 4 you're kind of overkilling how many times you're trying to see the item, and the consistency gets a little too high. But anyways, speaking of consistency, I run 4 Miracle Fighters. You choose an attribute of a card on your field and pay 1 gauge. And you put a size 3 monster or item with the attribute you chose and its call cost and its cast cost from your deck to your hand, and then shuffle your deck. It's a dual dungeon katana, so it's used in both Folktale and Electrodeities. And this can grab you either Amaterasu, Susanoo, or the Bell. So with two sets of 4 cards to search for the Bell, having 4 of the Bell just seems a little bit of overkill for me. But on to the next is the draw spell for Electrodeities, Ritual Harvest Prayer. You can only cast it if you have an Electrodeity on the field. You pay a gauge and you draw 2. If you have an Electrodeity item on your field, or if an Electrodeity item on your field has souls, you draw another card, so you could potentially draw 3. So it's basically you draw 3 if you're possessed onto Susanoo or Amaterasu, and you can only cast it once per turn. So just good general, obviously advantage draw card. Next are 3 Kagura Electrodeity welcomes. You can only cast it if you have Electrodeity on your field. You pay a life. You check the top 3. You gain 3 gauge. Then you look at all the gauge, even more than just a 3 if you have 3, more than 3. And put up to 1 card from among them to your hand, and then you just put the rest back into your gauge. You can only cast this once per turn, so it's nice with Otora, the size 0, that lets you gauge and draw, so you can play a couple of Toras and then play Electrodeity Welcome to have more variety in what you want to grab. Next is 2 Electrodeity Return. You pay 1 gauge, and you can grab a total of up to 2 Electrodeity monsters or items with different card names from your drop and add them back to your hand. Lately, I've been using this mainly to grab a respective size 3 that I'm missing, whether Susanoo or Amaterasu. And usually I tend to grab Otora, just because then you can just play her and regain the gauge and draw a card, so it's like you're really not even losing anything. And I only run 2 because I feel like if I run 3 or more, I just see it way too much for it to even be useful. Next are 3 Wind Arc Deity Uzu Ikazuchi. You can only cast it if your Electrodeity item has souls, which just basically means you got to be possessed in order to play this. For this turn, the crits of all your Electrodeities on the field, even your monsters, cannot be reduced by your opponent's card effects. And when an Electrodeity item on your field attacks, destroy a card on your opponent's field and deal 1 damage to your opponent. And that's you can only cast this once per turn, but that effect activates every time your size 3 item attacks. So with Susanoo, at least it'll be 3 times. With the Amaterasu, at least be 2 times. With the festival, let me see if I can just find it real quick. With Electrodeity Festival and the fact that you can restand an Electrodeity on your field, that means that could potentially go off more than 3 times if you're playing Susanoo. And then again, if you're playing the Impact. But I'm not playing the Impact right now in the deck. I'm trying to see how it feels without it. So I've seen a lot of people just run the impact at like 1 or 2, which is fine. I'm just trying to see how it is without it. And it seems to be doing pretty fine. So the next one is 4 Ceremonial Execution of Divine Punishment. You can only cast it if Electrodeity items on your field have souls, which just basically means you got to be possessed. Choose and use one of the following 2. For the turn, all cards on the field, on your opponent's field, get -3 defense, -3 power, and -1 crit. Or you destroy a spell or item on the field. 99% of the time, you'll use the first effect. And it's a good kind of the equivalent of like a loud voice for Electrodeities. Obviously, it's not as intense as loud voice, but it helps really slow down your opponent, especially if you have like Shuto on the field, which increases your defense by 3,000. So it makes this like 6,000 or 9,000 if you have 2 Shutos on the field or you play this more than one time. Deficit, which starts to really get hard to get over. So, yeah. Next shield is 4 of the Ceremonial Water Mirror. You can only cast it during attack on your opponent's turn. If you have an Electrodeity on your field, you nullify the attack, and then if you're possessed, basically if your item has a soul, you gain 2 life. With how aggressive a lot of decks can be, I'd rather run the Water Mirror than the Fire Mirror, and even then when I run the Water Mirror, sometimes it gets close. I think the Water Mirror is more worthwhile than the Fire Mirror. And then lastly in the deck are 2 Demon Way Sakura Fubukis, which are a little different than just obviously being an Electrodeity card, but its effect is you pay 2 life, and when your opponent casts a spell, you pay the 2 life for this, and you nullify the spell, so it doesn't go off. It's real nice in this deck, especially since Amaterasu during your opponent's turn gives you 2 life and draw cards, so this is almost essentially free. I like this at 2. I feel like I see it enough at 2 where it's useful enough at 2, and it's not like clogging my hand up. And so you just really, with this, you just got to kind of be aware of what spells to nullify. So yeah, that's pretty much it. One thing I actually didn't realize playing the deck now is I feel like I relatively suck at open center decks. Mainly being a main Katana World player, I am used to closed center decks, so I work with that more often. But it's a work in progress trying to manage how much power and crit people have on the field and trying to figure out what is acceptable for damage. So yeah, if you have any questions or anything, by all means feel free to leave them in the comments. I'm not saying this is like the most perfect build, but it's a good solid start for the deck. You know, there's a bunch of other viable options, but if you're kind of looking for more of like a general build that you can make from just this set, other than Demon Way Sakura Fubuki, that's the build. Yeah, and have a great day, guys.